Have you ever looked around your home, your routine, your days, and quietly wondered, is this how I pictured the later years of my life? Not because anything big is wrong, not because there's a diagnosis or a crisis, but because slowly something feels off. The spark's a little dimmer, the days stretch longer. Your world shrinks while everyone else seems to move on. You're not alone in that feeling. What many people don't realize is that the real danger in aging isn't always disease or decline, it's small, invisible decisions we make without even noticing. Harmless choices that slowly chip away at our independence, our confidence, and our joy. And here's the surprising part, nearly 97% of seniors make these mistakes. Not because they're lazy, not because they've given up, but because no one ever told them not to. Because society quietly nudges us to believe that slowing down, stepping aside, and disappearing is just how it is. But that's not how it has to be, not for you and not today. In this video, we're going to bring these hidden habits into the light. You'll learn 5 of the most common and most life-altering mistakes that older adults make without realizing. And more importantly, you'll learn how to turn things around, how to reclaim your voice, your choices, your energy. It starts with awareness, but it doesn't stop there. It starts with one decision. So let's begin. Let's talk about something that may sound harmless, but has far-reaching consequences: the quiet surrender of control. You may have heard yourself say it, "I'll just let the kids handle it." Or whatever's easier, and you meant well. You didn't want to be a burden or cause confusion or complicate things. Maybe you stepped back from handling your own money, let someone else choose your meals, or stopped giving your opinion when it came to where you wanted to go or how you wanted to live. At first, this can feel like relief, one less thing to worry about. But over time, this habit chips away at something much deeper: your sense of identity, your agency, the quiet knowing that you still matter. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. It happens when you go long enough believing you can't do something, even though you probably still can. Let me tell you about Walter. He's 79. After his wife passed, his children stepped in lovingly, helpfully to manage his bills, fill his prescriptions, even order his groceries. And for a while, he appreciated it. But then something shifted. He started forgetting how to write checks. He stopped offering opinions at family dinners. He began saying "I don't know" when asked simple questions, not because he didn't know, but because he didn't trust that he knew. And one day, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said to me, "I feel like a shadow in my own life." That broke my heart. But I've heard it before, and I know it can be turned around. It's not about taking everything back. It's about staying engaged. Start with one small thing. Maybe you take charge of your own breakfast again. Maybe you relearn how to use your online bank account. Maybe you start saying, "Actually, I'd rather go at 10, not 9. These aren't demands. They're reminders that you're still steering this ship, that you're not done yet, not by a long shot. Now let's turn to something just as powerful and just as quietly destructive: isolation. No one ever plans to be lonely. It sneaks in. Maybe a friend moved away. Maybe your spouse passed. Maybe your hearing isn't as sharp and conversations feel more draining than joyful. Maybe you just got used to the quiet. But here's the hard truth: too much solitude, especially after 60, is like rust to the human spirit. It spreads slowly and silently. And loneliness isn't just emotional, it's biological. It weakens your immune system. It can increase your risk of dementia, depression, even early death. You may think, "I'm just resting today." But how many just todays has it been? 1 week turns into 2, then into months. And soon the phone barely rings and the silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. Let me share a story. Lily, age 74, used to host Sunday dinners. Her house was full of laughter, kids, and noise. After her husband passed and her knees started giving her trouble, she stopped inviting people over. She said, "They're all busy anyway." For a year, she barely left the house except for doctor appointments. When we met, she told me she couldn't remember the last time she laughed, not really laughed. We worked together to change one thing. Just one. She started calling her old neighbor every Thursday. That was it. And something amazing happened. Her voice lifted, her posture changed. A few months later, she was back to hosting dinners, smaller ones, yes, but filled with life. The lesson: connection doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be consistent. A chat over tea, a shared puzzle, a walk with a friend, even a quick phone call counts. What matters is that you stay seen, heard, tethered to the world around you. Now, I want to pause here for a moment. If any part of this has spoken to you, if you've ever felt yourself giving up control or slowly disappearing into quiet isolation, please know this: you are not alone, and you are not past the point of change. You're still in the story, still shaping what comes next. And if you're still watching, I invite you to comment "still here" below. Not just for me, but for you. Let it be your signpost that today you're choosing to stay engaged. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now's the time. We're building a space for truth, for encouragement, and for strength that doesn't fade with age, it deepens. Let's keep going. Let's take a breath here. We've talked about the dangers of giving up control too early. We've explored how isolation, quiet and subtle, can quietly drain our spirit. Let's step into a third truth that too many older adults don't discover until the damage is already done, neglecting movement. Now I know what you might be thinking. My joints ache. I'm not 25 anymore. I don't need to prove anything. And all of that is true. You don't need to run a marathon or bench press your body weight. But here's what many people don't realize until it's almost too late. Movement isn't just for the young, it's what keeps you from feeling old. When you stop moving even gently, you don't just lose muscle, you lose balance. You lose bone density. You lose circulation energy, and over time, your confidence. Your world becomes smaller not because of age, but because your body simply isn't being asked to stretch anymore. Let me tell you about George. He was a mechanic for 40 years, hands always moving tools in constant motion. When he retired, he said, "Finally, I get to sit down." And sit he did. The recliner became his home base. A year passed, then two. His back started to ache. His legs felt stiff. And when he stood up too fast one morning, he fell and didn't get up so quickly. Here's the part that hurts: he blamed his age. He thought his body had just broken down. But the truth is, it didn't break. It shrank from disuse. Like a strong rope left out in the rain, it frayed slowly, quietly, from neglect, not from weakness. The beauty here is that it can change. The body responds quickly to movement, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Stretching your arms overhead, rotating your ankles in circles while seated, standing and sitting slowly from a chair 10 times. These aren't exercises. They're lifelines back to strength. Think of it like this: your body is a garden. If you don't water it, prune it, and let the sun in, it starts to wilt. But with a little daily care, it blooms again. It doesn't matter how old the roots are. Life can still flow through them. So ask yourself, when was the last time you moved, not out of necessity, but intention, not to get the mail or reach the remote, but to say, "I'm still here. I still can." There's no shame in starting small. You're not in a race, but you are still in the game. And movement is how you stay in it. Now let's talk about something that might feel unrelated at first, but is just as critical. Completely avoiding technology. I know. The world of smartphones, apps, passwords, screens, it can feel overwhelming. Maybe even annoying. And believe me, I understand. But here's the thing: avoiding technology today is a bit like avoiding roads in a world that's gone to cars. You can still get places, sure, but you'll miss out on a lot. And the journey becomes longer, lonelier, and more frustrating than it needs to be. Let me tell you about Susan. She's 73. When I first met her, she said, "All this technology stuff, it's not for me. I'd rather talk face to face." And she meant it until her daughter moved across the country. Suddenly, face to face wasn't an option. She started missing birthdays. Her doctor suggested a new app to manage her meds. She waved it off. But little by little, she began to feel left out. Not because people forgot her, but because she had stepped off the highway while the rest of the world kept moving. One day, her grandson sat with her and said, "Grandma, just try this." He showed her how to make a video call. They laughed, they connected, and something in her shifted. She wasn't lost in a sea of tech. She was anchored again, reconnected, not to the internet, but to her people. Technology doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as learning how to send a voice message to a friend, set a medication reminder on your phone, join a video call with your family on holidays. You don't have to use social media. You don't have to scroll news sites or play games. You just have to say, "I'm open." That's the only requirement. And once you do, doors open. Why does this matter so much? Because loneliness kills. And technology, for all its flaws, offers a lifeline, especially for older adults who might otherwise go unseen, unheard, and unremembered. Learning just one small thing, one button, one app can be the difference between isolation and connection. And here's something beautiful: learning technology actually strengthens your brain. It keeps the mind agile, curious, alive. It reminds you and everyone around you that you're still learning, still growing, still relevant. You're never too old to learn something new. And the moment you stop telling yourself, "That's not for me," is the moment you re-enter the conversation. Let's pause again. You've made it this far. That tells me something powerful about you. You're not someone who's given up. You're someone who's still searching, still trying. That matters. That means the light's still on. And I'm honored you're here. If this part of the video spoke to you, especially the parts about movement or learning new skills, drop a simple "still strong" in the comments. It helps us know you're out there. It helps others see they're not alone. And most of all, it helps you commit to that truth: you're stronger than you think. Whenever you're ready, we'll take this to the final part. One more silent trap that too many people fall into. But you're waking up. You're rising up, and that's how change begins. Let's keep going, because this last piece may be the hardest to hear, but it could also be the most freeing. We've talked about giving up control too early, about isolation, movement, and technology. But there's one more silent mistake that affects millions of older adults. And unlike the others, it doesn't show up in your body or on a phone screen. It shows up in your heart. It's this: not setting boundaries with adult children. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear. Loving your children, being generous, and wanting to help are beautiful things. You probably spent decades putting your family first, making sacrifices, holding everything together. But here's the truth: many older adults continue giving long after they've reached their emotional, physical, or financial limit. And they do it not out of joy, but out of guilt, habit, or fear. Let me tell you about Anita. She's 78, widowed and proud of her family. Her son's been struggling financially for years, and she's always stepped in covering rent, babysitting full-time, paying for car repairs. "I don't mind," she'd say, even when her own bank account ran dry. "It's what mothers do." But one day, Anita sat in my office, tears in her eyes. "I feel invisible," she said. "I'm exhausted, but I can't stop. If I say no, I feel like I'm abandoning them." That's the trap. When love turns into obligation, when helping turns into erasing yourself. Setting boundaries isn't about closing the door. It's about keeping the door from falling off its hinges. It's about preserving the relationship by honoring your own needs and limits. Because when you constantly say yes out of fear, you end up feeling resentful, drained, taken for granted. And your children, no matter how grown, never learn to stand fully on their own. Let's be real, boundaries are hard, especially when you've been the caretaker for most of your life. But they are a sign of deep wisdom, not selfishness. When you say, "I love you, but I can't help with that right now," you're not pushing people away, you're inviting them to respect you more. And respect, that's the soil real love grows in. Start small. Practice saying, "Let me think about it," instead of "sure" when someone asks for your time, energy, or money. Ask yourself, "Can I do this without hurting myself in the process?" That's not being unkind. That's being honest. You've earned the right to protect your peace. Your golden years weren't meant to be spent constantly solving problems that aren't yours to carry. Remember James, a 75-year-old I worked with. For years, his daughter relied on him for everything. Errands, finances, childcare. He never said no. One day he collapsed from sheer exhaustion, not because of age, but because of overextension. He loved his daughter deeply, but he'd forgotten to love himself too. After recovery, James started doing something simple. He created what he called Quiet Tuesdays, a day where he wouldn't run errands, wouldn't answer the phone unless it was urgent, and wouldn't feel guilty for taking time to rest. At first, his family resisted, but over time they adapted, and something surprising happened. They started appreciating him more. Boundaries didn't weaken his relationships, they healed them. So I'll say this clearly: it is okay to rest. It is okay to say no. It is okay to want a life of your own, even as a parent or grandparent. Because you are still a whole person, not a background character in someone else's story. And if this mistake resonated with you, if you've ever felt guilted into helping when you had nothing left to give, I invite you to write "My peace matters" in the comments. Not for me, but for you, as a quiet declaration, as a line in the sand that says, "I love my family, but I will not abandon myself." Now, before we close, I want you to take a deep breath with me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Good. We've gone through 5 of the most common life-diminishing mistakes that nearly all older adults fall into, not because they're weak, but because they're trying to do the right thing. And that's what makes this conversation so important. Because once you see the trap, you can step around it. You can reclaim your voice, your strength, your direction. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not invisible. You are wise. You are evolving. And most of all, you still matter. Maybe one of these mistakes hit close to home, maybe 2, or maybe all 5. That's okay. We're not here to shame or blame. We're here to awaken. To remind each other that life isn't over after 60, 70, or even 90. It's just changing. And you still get to choose how that change unfolds. Here's what I believe: every person watching this is capable of creating a richer, freer, and more joyful life, no matter their age. And it starts not with big leaps, but with small intentional shifts, saying no. Moving for 10 minutes, asking for help, learning one new thing, picking up the phone, cooking your own meal, owning your choices. That's how it begins. So if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like it, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. It helps us keep making content that lifts people up. And in the comments, let us know which of these 5 moments resonated with you the most. What small step are you going to take this week? Your story could be the nudge someone else needs to. Make a change too. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for spending this time with me. Here's to living with more strength, more peace, and more purpose than ever before. Here's to living your best life at any age.